Alright, hello everybody. Welcome to week 9 on chapter 8. The focus question here: how does averaging scores render students' grades inaccurate and also less equitable? What are more accurate and equitable options? I found this chapter to be very relevant to how most teachers grade, at least the ones that I'm familiar with, and kind of hit home for me and made me kind of reassess a lot of the things that I'm doing in my class. So to look at that main question of how does the averaging scores render grades inaccurate, is kind of tough to swallow because I think that it really does make them more inaccurate once you think about it. But then if you didn't think about it very much, you wouldn't see it as a problem. One of the first things that I saw was on page 95. The book talked about the student Ellis who didn't learn a concept coming into class. So the first assignment they got a D-, and then they learned a little bit more, did a little bit better. Second assessment they got a C, and then after that they got an A-. So if you average those scores, that overall score is not very good, even though by the end of the year they were doing A- work, and they should be passing that class with a pretty high grade because they learned a lot and they're performing at a really high level. So that makes sense to me. And that brought up the topic of, should we just grade the student's final assessment? And the book seemed to say that that was the best way to go. And in a lot of ways, I agree with that, because I do think it's about growth mindset and teaching the students that it's okay to make mistakes early on as long as we're learning from them. And as long as you know it by the end of the year, you should be good. One of the problems that I saw with that is one of the same problems that I saw with the book. On page 101, it says, if early scores don't matter and only the final performance matters, won't students simply slack off and not take early assignments seriously? I was really happy to see that, because I was like, oh, that's exactly what I was thinking. And I read through and expecting them to kind of solve that problem or say what we should do in that situation. And it basically said that we should just trust our students more. And I'm not really sure I agree with that as much as I want to. I teach at a Christian school, and I think my students are pretty trustworthy. But if they knew that I wasn't grading anything except for that last assessment, then I don't think they would really put any effort until the very end of the semester or end of the year, and then they would end up not doing very well because they didn't put any effort in and they didn't think what they were doing mattered. So I'm curious to hear what you guys have to think, or curious to hear what you guys have to say rather, about the best way to approach that, grading just the final assessment, but also making sure students are motivated to keep trying, because I'm not sure how that would work exactly. Looking at some of the other questions, how easy should it be for a student to calculate her own grade? I think it should be fairly simple. For one, just to make sure the students understand what they're being assessed on and what they're being graded on and what their expectations are. I think it should be fairly simple, and it shows that it's very planned out if it's very simple as well. But a lot of times with that, again, it doesn't leave very much room for the growth. One thing that I've seen is dropping the lowest test score. So students can say, hey, I didn't do very well on this one, but I either replaced it with the final assessment or just got rid of that bad score altogether. And that would be, I think, a good medium in between. That would make it a little bit difficult to calculate their own grades as well. And that last question there at the bottom, think of an example of the professional workplace in which a group work is expected, and what's the rationale and how's the effectiveness of that collaboration determined. So kind of switching gears here, going into group work. I think one of the things that I think of now with professional development and collaboration amongst my peers is that each person is given a specific task, and we all work together on our own tasks, so that way everybody has something specific to do and we're all contributing a specific piece. So I think that's important for our students as well, to ensure that one person doesn't do all the work, and to show the teacher what each student is doing and what they know individually, rather than, again, one person carrying the team on their back and doing all the work. So yeah, this chapter had a lot to talk about. Definitely very interesting. Definitely left me with a lot of questions. So I'm excited to hear your guys' input and to respond to some of your posts as well.